Thank you for joining me on another week of Wide Open Throttle. I'm really excited for today's episode because we have Mike Finnegan and David Freiburger, and I can already tell you guys are going to up the watt game because, David, you're double fisting over here, so that's a good sign. You guys just got back from your crazy Alaskan expedition, and it brought tons of questions, so I want to spend the first part of the show addressing some of those common viewer questions you get with each episode. First one being, does the show have a script?
Not at all. Does it look like it has a script? Have you seen the show? No.
No, we sit down and David goes, okay, we can spare 3 days away from the office this month. Where do we go? What do we do? And then we just figure out something that we can do in that time and
then
leave.
Change it at the last moment and then go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so yeah, all of the failure that you see, that really happens.
Okay. People want to know what happens to the cars when you're done with them.
A lot of different things.
They sit out in the parking lot.
Yeah, they do. Abandoned is a good word.
They're beautifying our surroundings.
The one we just did, we sold for the price of our bar bill in the middle of nowhere, and I couldn't be happier to get rid of it. We've kept some. The Dragoir, we blew the engine up in it in the episode, but we just rebuilt it. In fact, today, didn't it make 650 horsepower?
That's news to me, okay.
Yeah, didn't you see the video? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
650?
Made 650.
It's going to live up to its name file.
That's right. We're going to break the rear end in that thing. So some things we keep, some things are gone.
Where'd the 55 Chevy go?
It went into a lot of pieces that sort of resemble an automobile, but not really. We're going to film an episode of Roadkill about it when we finally get to drive it. So it's at the body shop right now. I'm about ready to build an engine for it.
So was the aim with that car to really annoy the Mopar guys and the Chevy guys by putting a Hemi into a 55?
Yeah,
I mean, was that the plan?
It was, because there's only so many ways you can do a 55 Chevy, and everybody puts Chevys in them. So why not put a Hemi? And that was actually his idea. You know, it's a car he's always wanted to do for a while.
It's interesting. I find that the audience has selective memory about what actually happened in the past, and people look at a gasser and think it needs to be era correct for 59 to 68-ish. And back then, guys were putting slant sixes in Willys and Oldsmobiles in Willys and all sorts of things. It's not unbelievable that somebody would have put a new Hemi into a 55 and 64.
So, okay, well, first of all, I wore my Canadian tuxedo in honor of your epic Yukon adventure. But second of all,
step up to the flannel.
But I think you could have been a lot more annoying. Like, you could have stuck like a Japanese engine in a 55 Chevy, or a Hyundai motor, or like a German motor.
There's annoying people, and then there's
French motor.
Suicide.
Right. You could have had like the Mopar Jihad come after you.
Yeah, great, exactly.
Okay, the constant question is, why is Roadkill only once a month? Very, very discouraged, frustrated viewers who want to see you weekly, apparently.
In our spare time, we do this newsletter called Hot Rod Magazine, and it's quite time-consuming.
I think that is important, because everything that we're doing on this channel is we're doing it in addition to stuff we already do, number one. Number two is these shows don't have huge budgets, as these guys know. I mean, I've seen some of the hotels you've stayed in.
You haven't stayed in them, but you've seen them.
Well, I wouldn't stay in them. I've seen them.
Seen them from afar, at a great distance.
So, we'd love to do Roadkill more often. It's a lot of fun. It's great to do, but we just physically don't have the time, and we don't have the money. So
we'd do it full time, but the wives just wouldn't fly.
Yeah, I'd be divorced.
All right,
I like my wife. I'm gonna keep her.
Good thinking. When will the F-bomb Camaro be on Roadkill?
It's in the next episode.
Oh.
Sort of.
It is?
Yeah. Remember, we drove it over to the museum.
Oh my God.
So real quick, for a lot of people who have never heard of Hot Rod Magazine that are watching, what's the F-bomb?
The F-bomb is my '73 Camaro that is painted up in sort of a World War II bomber sort of look. It's army green, has F-bomb nose art on the side, and conveniently it also has a 1,500 horsepower twin turbo motor in it. Yeah. But we're finally getting it run again. We got it tuned up the other day. It needs a lot of transmission work, but once we get that sorted out, we're going to do an episode with it.
Probably the most famous Camaro in the world.
Yeah, I'd say.
I was driving it home from here the other night, and these guys rolled up to me on the 105 freeway and go, "Fast and Furious!" The car was in Fast and Furious 4 or 5, I don't know, for like 15 seconds. And
doing wheelies on dirt and killing bad guys.
Yeah. No, it's truly a daily driver now. It is, I mean, what stops that thing, except for the fact that I've only driven a few times.
Well, the torque converter.
No, the torque converter is good enough to drive around, because what happens when you've got it tuned down to 700 horsepower, it works fine. When you crank it up, it falls on its face.
This is the thing, I mean, so when we watch Roadkill, for us guys who work with new cars all the time, it seems inconceivable that you would jump in a car that you know might get you 100 miles on a good day before something goes wrong. I mean, what's the enjoyment in all of that?
I think I have a pretty twisted idea of what fun is.
Ah! That was a bad one.
I'm honking our horn, which sounds a lot like what I think a bison should sound like. These things all make sense to us in our brains when we, hit the road in something that's going to kill us. So,
but I think he's saying it's the constant breaking down. Like, half of every episode is you're under a car, right? And it's not like little stuff. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's big stuff. And
but where's the entertainment and predictability?
Well, and it's a lot of it is happy coincidence. We just happen to have no time to fix these things ahead of time.
It's a true
we're forced
fact.
into leaving and hitting the road on a road trip with zero prep time. So
the last one
we
that we
look
did?
like we don't know what we're doing. If we had a little more time, we'd probably still look that way, but the car might go further.
The last one, I literally hadn't seen it until the morning we left.
Yeah.
And you had bought it in the dark and shoved it under a tarp 3 months earlier and hadn't looked at it since.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the very first Roadkill episode where you came to me and you said, well, guess what, we're going to go to Alaska and we're going to take this car. And it was, I think, the night before. So when are you due to leave, David? About 6 hours from now. I think the engine was still out. And, like nothing was ready.
We were supposed to leave half an hour ago. I'm guessing we're going to leave 12 hours from now. It's a conservative estimate.
Dude, that was an emotional blow. I'm telling you.
No,
It's just done.
never is.
I remember the video guys that were going on that first one. They're like,
That was their first and last
we're gonna
rodeo.
die. Like, we have
No,
plan.
actually, they were more like, yeah, we're going to Alaska. They didn't realize that they were
Well,
sleeping in the
maybe
car at the side of the road.
Maybe I talked to them afterwards.
But I got to say, in that episode, the best moment of all was when you actually got to Alaska and the border guard. I mean, was that faked?
You guys finally made it. I saw you on YouTube. Yeah, you went to Idaho and got that old Chevy.
No.
Not at all.
No,
we were recognized so many times on that trip, and that was amazing.
If you look at the video, I keep looking at the GoPro camera mounted in the car because I'm like, is it on? It better be on. This is insane. These guys, like he said, like half a dozen times, people were going, I know that car, or I know a Freiburger.
What was the crack? This is America, not California.
Yeah.
It's universal that California just sucks.
The laughing stock.
Yeah, we're the laughing stock of the world.
I think it's 72 degrees out right now, by the way.
That's all we have going for us.
That's why people live here.
Exactly.
And beer.
But to take a 45-year-old car up into, it was very, very cold. I mean, you looked cold. You seemed to walk around in flip-flops everywhere.
Yeah.
He wore flip-flops to Idaho.
I did.
When we started the episode, we got out in the snow. He still had his flip-flops on.
That's not impressive. It's disappointing I put shoes on at that point.
Well, still, I mean, it's like you have no feeling down there in your feet.
But, things like starting the car in the morning.
Yeah! Who says you need fuel injection when you have a carburetor?
I mean, you've just added a degree of difficulty to any normal Roadkill episode by going to somewhere where the climactic conditions are so extreme.
In hindsight, it was really scary because my biggest fear going into this was that we'd slide into a snowbank, get stuck under it, and have no food and starve to death, together, which would be weird.
With the GoPro, with the GoPro going.
Right, but when we ran into the guys on the snowmobiles, they were like, "Thank God you came now." And I'm like,
it's warm.
I'm like, why? They're like, well, because when it gets down to minus 40, you don't have the right gear on, your lungs freeze, and you get frostbite, and you die. That's when I went, oh. We're idiots. What are we doing here?
We were there in a warm spell of 1. 1 degree.
1 degree was warm, and so I'm glad we went when we went, and we should never do that again.
All right, now I want to move into some brand discussion here. Ralph Gilles said the Challenger's currently under the knife, and that Dodge SRT is coming out with an answer to Chevy Z28. So, what does a revised Challenger need to compete here?
Horsepower.
Well, it's not 470 horsepower. I mean, it's not.
That's weak when you're looking at a GT500.
It weighs 4,100 pounds.
That's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah, weight is the thing. The car's very big and heavy. I mean, the regular Challenger, I like the RT. It's kind of like the Harley Davidson of muscle cars because And it's a bit soft and a bit buffy, but it's got a lot of charisma and personality, and people love it. Once they start getting up into the SRTs, you know, they put a bigger tire on it, the usual thing, more horsepower. But it's wide, it's big, and it's heavy, and you know, it's just a little bit lazy on the steering. So yeah, give it a diet, give it a more horsepower.
It also has those like speedboat seats that are, you know, like I'm a big guy and they're a foot too wide for me, you know. So it's like they gotta race it up a completely
Do you think they'll shrink it though? Are they going to shrink the platform and use something completely different?
Not for what he was talking about with a competitor to the Z28. When the next one, the CUDA or whatever it's going to be, the Barracuda shows up, that'll probably have to be smaller because you know
it will be. It's the CUDA, which is probably going to appear by around about 2016, will be a car that's going to be built on a new rear-wheel drive platform that's being developed within the Fiat Chrysler group, and at one
be an Alfa
end,
Romeo,
it'll
right?
be an Alfa Romeo 5 Series sized Alfa Romeo sedan, and one of the other cars they're going to pull off this is going to be the CUDA. So it will shrink. They're going to spend a little bit of money on the Challenger just to bring it up to speed. And I think it'll work. I mean, I've always liked the Hemi engine. I thought, you know, it revs pretty well. It's pretty strong. The 6.4 is what, 300, 400?
Oh, the 6.4 is 470 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, but
Does a great burnout.
That's sub-average at this point. They need,
What does it need horsepower?
everyone needs to
let's
email them just one word over and over and over: boost.
But Ralph Shields hates that. So when we did the ZR1 Viper thing, he kept saying how, man, superchargers are cheating. You only get that horsepower for a quarter mile. You get heat soak, goes away. Naturally, he loves natural aspiration. Now maybe that's just for the Viper.
If you're road racing, I can see that.
Yeah, maybe
you know,
just
for sure.
But so the Z28's a road racer. So you know he's gonna want.
He's up against 500 horsepower cars though.
He's up
Yeah,
against
the
the
Z28's
LS7.
not blown.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So the LS7 is like, that's a sweet engine. Right? So you gotta at least match that.
Can they get
At least.
500 horsepower out of that 6.4?
If they can't, they need to go back to the drawing board, because in our marketplace, that's what's holding them back. That and electronics that are difficult to be overcome by the aftermarket. Those are the two things that are keeping that car from being at the level of the Camaro and the Mustang.
In terms of enthusiasts being able to modify the cars themselves, so is it like the old story that Chryslers are expensive to do, and they always have been, haven't they?
Chryslers and Fords are. You know, if you want to modify an engine, the LS is the one to modify.
It's, again, boost. You take those things and throw like a Hellion turbo on the thing, bam, you know.
And these days,
car.
I mean, if you've driven the Cadillac and the CTS-V and the ZR1 Corvette, I mean, there isn't lag. The engine doesn't run out of horsepower.
Well, supercharging is a whole. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. And even when Randy was set the old record in the ZR1, it was his second lap, which was the fastest. So in other words, okay, maybe there's some sort of heat soak. But he still went 2.2 miles and then set a fast lap, which was another 2.2 miles.
But let's also be realistic. No one buys that car and runs 200 miles an hour. That's
Right,
marketing.
right.
People buy that car and do burnouts across the intersection,
Absolutely.
and that's where.
Yeah, once a month. Right.
Most of us will
In the
run out
summer.
of talent before they run out of horsepower.
I said this when we did the roundtable with Ralph. I think it's great that American manufacturers are now building track specials, like the Z28. I mean, that is one hell of a looking track car.
And I will argue that this new Boss 302 Z28 handling emphasis came out of the hot rod marketplace. Because forever, muscle cars were about straight line performance, and that's all anybody wanted to hear. And then this pro touring movement came almost 2 decades ago, and people are making old muscle cars handle in significant ways. And those guys in Detroit who are working on those platforms are enthusiasts, and they're seeing that, and they're realizing that the marketplace is beginning to accept the fact that a V8 rear-wheel drive stick axle car, well, not in the case of the Camaro, can handle, and that people will want that, and people use that in marketing.
What's interesting is that, for years Americans have been able to go drag racing and it's, run what you brung, take your street car to the track or whatever. But now you're seeing this road course phenomenon. People are building private road courses where you can do the same thing. You can drive your car. I mean, you talk to people at Ferrari or Porsche, they know this is the future because, no one needs 180 mile an hour 911, and increasingly people are looking for places where they can take those cars and really exercise them to the limit. In fact, Porsche is building a brand new delivery center just down the 405 here that's going to have a track on which you'll be able to drive your cars on. So, you know, they'll be cars that people will take to tracks all over America just to have fun with.
It's getting easier and easier for the amateur to go road racing or autocrossing. There was a time that was completely inaccessible. And you're talking about some of the country clubs that have road courses, but even in the backyard world, you can go to a Good Guys event and autocross your car. You can go to open track day and pay 25 bucks.
Now, I have a question. So a lot of people I spoke with when the Z28 showed up in New York, they said the Z28 is going to cost more money than the ZL1, but the ZL1 makes more power. How? What do you think of that?
Every time that they try and make a race special, like witness the Ford Cobras of the 90s and 2000s, and remove content, they charge you more for it. Yeah. They will charge you more to take the stereo and air conditioning out of that car because it's a small run project, and that's why. Well, yeah, and they know that guys will line up to get them, and that dealers will tack $20,000 on them.
Easy, yeah.
And is that because it's rolling along an assembly line and it costs more to yank the stuff?
It is. It's, well, it's,
not
it's,
put it in. They put it in and take it out.
It's also because they say how special it is. I mean,
no, but there is actually a cost. The actual cost is nothing like that. I worked for a while on the dark side for a car company. I can still remember the meetings that took place just to change the valve cover on an engine. It involved, you know, over 30 people in the room. There was the marketing guy who said, is this a good idea? There was the engineering guy who says, well, will the paint last? And then there was the design guy who said, well, what color green? And then the manufacturing guy says, well, how can we get the right green valve cover on the right engine in there? I mean, people don't know how complicated it is.
You told me that also took 9 months, and then they said no, we couldn't paint the valve cover green.
So that's why, yeah, being able to do cars like the Z28, I'm amazed. The longer I'm around this business, the more amazed I am that cars like that get built at all. And I think it's a real testament to people like Mark Royce to be able to push those cars through the system. I mean, Mark told me he had to convince GM to keep the Wixom engine plant open a year so they could build LS7 engines just for that car.
And that's like 2,000 engines. Right?
Which is an interesting point, because I think your next year Camaro is going to be the last with conventional fuel injection. Because, you know, the new LT1 is direct injection, which is an aftermarket nightmare because nobody has yet figured out how to hop it up.
I can't believe
how do you
they're
get more
using
fuel to it?
The LT1 name. That's going to be hard for me to type. It's new LT1. It's not the old one with reverse cooling and.
I think LT1. I think failed OptiSpark.
I think you'll probably need a few more beers and you'll be able to sort it out.
I think you're right. I'm dry. I'm definitely dry.
And on that note, this was a great discussion, everybody. Thanks for being a part of it.
Cheers.
You need more beer, Mike.
I'll just fake it. There. What are you drinking, by the way?
Scotch, I guess.
Damn.
Whatever Angus is drinking.
I guess.
So episode 2 is going to be.
Scotch.
She's in it for the ethanol.
I guess. My dear.
We have a low brow question that I would like to address. Because we got it with sort of, you know, kind of.
This is the best day at work ever. It really is.
All right. Redo.